My 8-year-old was left alone on a church bench for 6 hours while the rest of the family didn't want to deal with her meltdowns. She has autism. They knew that. When I found out, I showed up at Sunday dinner with every medical report they ignored. The room went silent until my brother said one thing that made me. I, 38 female, am a single mom to the most incredible little girl named Harlow, 8 female. She has autism. She was diagnosed when she was 4, after nearly 2 years of specialists, evaluations, second opinions, and appointments that felt endless. It wasn't just a label, it was a key. A door to understanding her better. Once I got past the fear and grief of what I thought I lost, I realized I hadn't lost anything. I'd gained clarity. And that's when I started to really fight for her. But no one else in my family joined me. I was raised in Minneapolis, Minnesota, by parents who are the smile through the crisis, don't talk about it at the dinner table type. My mom, Ruth, 66 female, is as emotionally unavailable as she is obsessed with hosting perfect Sunday dinners. My dad, Walter, 68 male, is a retired HVAC guy who believes children should be seen and not heard unless they're reciting Bible verses. Together, they have a very 1950s view on parenting and an even more outdated view of anything that challenges their routine. I'm the oldest of 3. My sister Mira, 36 female, is the golden child, soft-spoken, perfectly put together, married to a lawyer, 2 kids, never raises her voice. Colby, 32 male, my brother, is the jokester. Always has been. Funny in that sarcastic, biting way that leaves you laughing, until it doesn't. His humor has teeth. The kind that can cut you open before you know you're bleeding. Growing up, I was the odd one out. Not rebellious, exactly. Just, not like them. Sensitive, stubborn, always asking why instead of how high. I moved out the moment I could and thought distance would dull the sharpness of it all. But then I had Harlow, and everything changed. I tried so hard to keep them in her life. I really did. They were at the hospital when she was born. My mom crocheted a baby blanket. Dad brought cigars. Mira cried. Colby made jokes. And for a moment, I thought we were finally going to be one of those close-knit families. I let myself believe that once they got to know her, once they saw her, they'd understand. But that never happened. As Harlow grew and her differences became more apparent, the way she wouldn't make eye contact, the way she lined up her toys for hours, the way she'd melt down at the sound of a vacuum or a crowded room, the cracks began to show. My mom would say things like, "All kids have tantrums." Colby once asked me if I'd considered just spanking it out of her. Mira stopped inviting us to her kids' birthdays. And if I brought up sensory issues or social communication difficulties, the room would go quiet. But I still brought Harlow to Sunday dinners every few weeks, if she was having a good day. I wanted her to have a family. I wanted her to belong. Sometimes she'd play quietly with her toys in the corner. Other times she'd sit at the table with her headphones on. I always stayed nearby. I never left her alone with them for more than 10 minutes. Until 3 Sundays ago. That morning, I got an emergency call from the billing department I work at. One of the coding specialists had quit mid-audit, and they needed someone to help sort the mess. I tried calling 3 sitters. No answer. I texted the one friend I had who sometimes helped out, she was out of town. So I called my mom. I hesitated, deeply. But I called. "Mom, I'm so sorry to ask, but can you watch Harlow today? I have a work emergency, and I really don't have anyone else." There was a pause, and then she said, "We're going to church, but she can come. She can sit with us. We'll take her to brunch after. It'll be fine." I immediately launched into her routine, the headphones, the snack pack, her fidget toy, the quiet corner she prefers. She might have a hard time with the music, especially the organ, I warned. "Rain," she interrupted, with that condescending patience she uses when she's trying to prove she's already above it all, "we can handle it. She's family." I dropped Harlow off with everything she needed. She had her soft noise-canceling headphones, her weighted blanket, 2 of her favorite sensory toys, and a laminated card that said "I need space," which she'd been using really effectively in therapy. I texted mid-service. My mom replied with a thumbs-up emoji. I let myself breathe. That evening, I finished up early and went straight to their house. It was around 5:30. I expected to find Harlow curled up in the den, maybe watching her favorite nature videos. She wasn't there. She wasn't in the kitchen. Not in the guest room. Not playing in the backyard. I asked my dad. He shrugged and kept watching golf. She's still out back, my mom said, like it was the most normal thing in the world. Still out back? She had a meltdown. Screaming. It was too loud in church. Colby couldn't concentrate. Mira had a headache. So we brought her outside. What do you mean, you brought her outside? She sat on the bench. She calmed down. I checked on her once. I didn't respond. I just ran. She was sitting on the hard wooden bench in front of the chapel building. The same bench where they take family photos every Easter. Her hair was frizzy from the humidity. Her cheeks were blotchy and red. Her eyes looked swollen, like she'd cried herself dry hours ago. Her water bottle was empty. Her sensory toys were in her lap, untouched. I knelt down, trying not to cry. Hi, baby. Are you okay? She nodded, then whispered, I was good. I stayed where you said. I waited. My heart broke in a way it never had before. I gathered her up, her blanket, her bag. She clung to me like she hadn't seen me in a year. Her arms around my neck, tight. Not one of them followed me out. Not one of them came for her. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat at my kitchen table, printing every single medical evaluation, every note from her occupational therapist, her speech pathologist, her pediatrician, her neurologist, and her behavior specialist. I wrote a timeline. I made notes. I highlighted phrases like requires high sensory support, vulnerable to emotional dysregulation, must not be left unattended during distress episodes. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to show them. The next Sunday, I packed everything into a manila folder, neat, organized, undeniable. I dressed like I was going to court. Slacks, blouse, no makeup. I didn't even brush my hair the fancy way like I usually do for dinner with them. I wanted them to see me stripped down. Just a mother. Just a woman who had been pushed too far. Dinner starts at 5. I walked in at 5:01. The house smelled like roast chicken and potatoes, like it always did. Like the air hadn't changed even though everything had. Colby was sitting at the far end of the table, cracking open a beer. Mira was texting. My mother looked up, surprised but not unhappy. Oh. We didn't know you were coming, honey. You should have said, I have something I need to share before dinner, I said, setting the folder down right in the middle of the table. Everyone paused. What's all this? Walter asked, frowning, his carving knife still in his hand. These are Harlow's evaluations. Her diagnostic reports. Letters from her specialists. Notes you've all ignored for years. My mom glanced at my dad. Myra's brow furrowed, still not putting her phone down. I opened the folder and spread a few pages out. The first was the psychological evaluation that confirmed Harlow's autism diagnosis. The second was a report from her occupational therapist describing her sensory challenges. Then a letter from the neurologist, and then her IEP summary from school. No one said a word. You left her alone, I said quietly. On a bench. For 6 hours. In 83-degree weather. Without water. Without anyone checking on her more than once. She was screaming in church, rain, my mother said, almost gently, like she was the one trying to keep me calm. It was scaring the babies. The pastor looked uncomfortable. We just needed a moment of peace. She's not a nuisance, I snapped, and felt the tears start to threaten. I swallowed them back. She's 8 years old. She has a disability. And you treated her like a broken lamp you shoved into the garage. Colby leaned back in his chair, the smugness already rising in his voice. Oh, come on. You're acting like we threw her in a ditch. You left her alone. For 6 hours. Do you have any idea what could have happened? What was she thinking? What kind of damage does that to a child like her? She needs discipline, not coddling, he said. You treat her like she's fragile and special. She's just weird. That last word. That was it. Weird. The rage that had been simmering finally boiled. You think I treat her like she's fragile? I asked. My voice wasn't loud, but it was sharp, like glass being dropped on tile. Do you have any idea how strong that girl is? She wakes up every day in a world that doesn't make sense to her, filled with sounds that hurt her ears, people who don't understand her, rules she didn't write, and she still tries. She still smiles. She still waited for you. Sat on that bench thinking she was the problem, thinking she did something wrong. She calmed down eventually, Mira said flatly, finally speaking. It wasn't like she was in danger. She was alone. For 6 hours. No one said anything. My mother finally spoke, voice brittle. Well, maybe next time she shouldn't come if she's going to cause such disruption. That was it. The final straw. I gathered the papers back into the folder, slowly, carefully. I took a breath. My hands were shaking again, but not from fear this time. From finality. You won't see her again, I said quietly. Not unless you're willing to actually learn who she is, what she needs, and how to treat her like a human being. My dad pushed back his chair. That's ridiculous. She's part of this family, no. She is. But you are not part of hers anymore. And just as I turned to leave, Colby, ever the last word kind of man, muttered it. The sentence that made me feel like I was hearing him for the first time in my life. You just like pretending she's broken so you can feel like a hero. I froze. I didn't even turn back to look at him. I just said, you don't get to talk about her. Not anymore. Then I walked out. I didn't cry in the car. I didn't cry that night. Not even when I tucked Harlow into bed and she asked, will Grandma still see me? I kissed her forehead and said, we're going to make some new friends. I meant it. The next week, I blocked all their numbers. I pulled Harlow from their church's Sunday school. I even called the pastor and explained exactly why. He apologized, sincerely, and asked if I'd be open to talking with the youth ministry team about ways to better support neurodiverse kids. I said I'd think about it. I started researching churches with sensory-friendly programs. We found one. Small, warm, and calm. They had a quiet room with fidget bins and dim lights. The first time we walked in, no one stared at her. No one asked why she had headphones on. One woman, the Sunday school lead, simply smiled and said, "Hi Harlow. We're so glad you're here." She beamed. The changes started slow, like a drizzle before a storm clears. I found myself sleeping a little better, eating actual meals, and not just leftovers from Harlow's plate. It's strange how much emotional weight you carry without noticing until it's gone, the tightness in your chest when your phone buzzes, wondering if it's your mom calling with another backhanded comment, or Mira inviting everyone to a birthday party and forgetting to include you. After I cut them off, that weight lifted. I felt guilty about it at first. What kind of daughter doesn't talk to her parents? What kind of sister walks away from her family? But then I'd see Harlow line up her animal figurines in perfect rows on the carpet, humming under her breath, peaceful and unbothered, and I'd remember, I'm not just someone's daughter. I'm someone's mother. And she comes first. Always. About 3 weeks after I walked out, I got a letter in the mail. A real letter. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting instantly, Myra's tight, slanted cursive, the kind she used in middle school when she still kept a diary and colored in the hearts of her eyes. I let it sit on the counter for a full day before opening it. It was short. A page and a half. No apology, not exactly. No, I'm sorry for what happened or I was wrong. Just a tentative olive branch. She wrote, I didn't know how bad it had gotten. I should have stepped in, or at least asked questions. I don't know anything about autism, Rain. I was scared to say the wrong thing, so I didn't say anything at all. That doesn't make it okay. I miss you. And Harlow. I'd like to learn. If you'll let me. It wasn't enough. But it wasn't nothing. I didn't respond. Not right away. Instead, I took the letter and put it in the drawer where I keep Harlow's early drawings, the crayon rainbows, the paper with shaky letters spelling out MOM, the finger-painted dinosaur with 3 eyes because that's how I like him. I needed time. Colby didn't reach out. Neither did my parents. But Mira did again, this time over email. It was longer. She had clearly been researching, because she referenced things like stimming and auditory overload and even quoted a blog post from a neurodivergent adult about masking. I read that one 3 times. It still wasn't an apology. But it was closer to understanding. In the meantime, life went on. I got Harlow into a Saturday art class designed for neurodivergent kids, held in the community center downtown. The first week, she barely looked at anyone. By the third week, she made a friend, a girl named Savi who also wore headphones and liked dinosaurs. They sat side by side and painted green triceratops for an hour. No words. Just soft humming and paintbrushes and the kind of connection that doesn't need small talk. I sat in the parent lounge with a few other moms, all of us with tired eyes and hopeful smiles. One woman, Raina, struck up a conversation. She had a son who was nonverbal, and she ran a local group for families raising neurodiverse kids. We meet on Thursdays, she said. We mostly drink coffee and cry. Sometimes we laugh. I went the next Thursday. I didn't cry. But I did laugh. 2 months after the bench incident, Harlow had her first dentist appointment where she didn't cry. It sounds small, but it wasn't. She sat in the chair with her blanket over her lap, her headphones on, and a weighted stuffed bunny on her chest. The hygienist was trained in working with sensory-sensitive kids. She counted to 3 before every tool. Told Harlow what each sound would be. Let her sit up between every step. And when we left, Harlow looked up at me and said, "I did a big thing." "Yes, you did," I whispered, kneeling down in the parking lot to hug her. "You did a big, brave thing." That night, I found myself scrolling through my camera roll, photos of Harlow playing in the park, eating blue popsicles, watching squirrels through the window. I found one from that Sunday. The day she'd been left alone. She was on the bench, arms folded in her lap, her shoes kicked off, her eyes red. I'd taken it to document, to show proof of what had happened. I hadn't been able to look at it since. Now I looked. And I cried. Not for me. For her. For the 8-year-old who thought staying quiet would make people love her more. Who thought following rules meant she'd be rewarded. Who waited. And waited. And then I deleted the photo. Not because I wanted to forget, but because I finally believed I didn't need proof anymore. I knew what happened. And I'd never let it happen again. Then one afternoon in early spring, as I was picking up groceries, I saw my mother. She was standing near the fresh produce, bagging green beans with her signature manicured nails and blank expression. I almost turned around. I almost ran. But something stopped me. She looked up. Our eyes met. She froze, mid-scoop. We just stood there, 2 women who shared blood but very little else. Finally, she said, "You look tired." I laughed, an ugly, sharp little sound. "I'm raising a child. Of course I'm tired." She hesitated. "How is she?" "She's thriving. Without you." Her mouth opened like she was going to say something, maybe defend herself, maybe blame me, maybe play the victim. But then, something strange happened. She didn't. She just nodded. Once. I walked away. I didn't see or hear from her again for months after that brief produce aisle exchange. And truthfully, I didn't want to. I didn't need some dramatic reconciliation or emotional monologue. What I needed was the quiet. The peace. The freedom of finally letting go of the illusion that these people were ever going to be what I needed them to be, or what Harlow deserved. But the universe has a way of circling back. It happened in the most unexpected place. Harlow's school district hosted a town hall for parents of neurodiverse students. It was a new initiative pushed by a few of the special education coordinators, focused on inclusion and awareness. I'd signed up weeks ago to be part of the parent panel, just a small 10-minute segment where I'd share our experience navigating school, therapies, and family challenges. The room was packed. Teachers, therapists, administrators, a few local journalists, even some city council folks. And sitting 3 rows back from the front? Mira. I did a double take. She was scribbling notes on a pad. I wasn't even sure she saw me at first, but about 5 minutes in, she caught my eye. She gave me a small nod. I took a breath and stood at the podium. I kept it simple, honest. No dramatics. Just our story. Harlow's story. How it feels to raise a child who doesn't fit into neat boxes. How isolating it can be. How often people, even those closest to you, get it wrong. And how damaging their indifference can be. I'm not here to shame anyone, I said toward the end, but I do think people need to realize the cost of not showing up. When a child is left out, ignored, misunderstood, they don't forget. They internalize it. And they carry that pain in silence. I scanned the room. Mira was looking straight at me. No phone. No notes. Just watching. I finished. Applause followed. Harlow, sitting quietly with her headphones and her sketchpad, didn't look up, but I saw her grin. Afterward, people came to shake my hand, thank me. A few asked follow-up questions. Mira waited until everyone cleared out. She approached slowly, almost shyly. That was new. I had no idea you were going to be speaking, she said. I raised an eyebrow. She smiled, embarrassed. Okay. That's a lie. I saw your name on the schedule. I came because I wanted to hear it. All of it. From you. I nodded but said nothing. I meant what I wrote in the letter, she continued. I didn't know how bad it was. I didn't want to know. It was easier to pretend nothing was wrong. But that day. I think about it all the time. That she waited. Alone. That we left her like that. I let her words hang there. It wasn't enough, still not enough. But it was something. What changed? I finally asked. She sighed. I saw my son mimic Harlow last week. He flapped his hands and said he didn't want loud noises. I scolded him. Told him to stop being weird. Then he looked up and said, "But Harlow does it." I blinked. He's 5, she whispered. And he's learning from me. I realized I'm teaching him to be afraid of differences. To be dismissive. Just like Mom taught us. That landed hard. I looked her dead in the eye. Are you here to fix that for you? Or for her? Mira straightened. For her. If you'll let me. I studied her. It wasn't forgiveness. But it was the beginning of accountability. Start by showing up, I said. And this time, don't disappear when it's hard. That wasn't revenge. Not yet. That came a little later, and sweeter. A month later, I got an email from the school board. They were piloting a parent-led educational series for families and educators. Based on the response from the town hall, they wanted me to lead the first session. A paid role. The topic? Understanding and supporting neurodiverse children in the family unit. It would be a recurring monthly workshop. Open to the public. I accepted. The first night of the workshop, I set up early handouts, visuals, sensory examples. I brought videos, real testimonials from adults on the spectrum, and even role-play scenarios for attendees. It was structured, thoughtful, and comprehensive. The room filled up faster than I expected. In the third row sat Mira, again. But this time, she wasn't alone. Colby was there. I nearly dropped my clipboard. He sat stiffly, arms folded across his chest, jaw set. Mira leaned over and whispered something, and he nodded, barely. I didn't acknowledge them directly. I didn't need to. Instead, I spoke to the room. And through the room, I spoke to them. I told them about the church bench. About roast chicken. About the silence. About the way a child can remember abandonment even after the adults forget. I showed them photos, not the sad ones. The good ones. Harlow painting with Savi. Harlow in her dinosaur costume at Halloween. Harlow reading under a blanket fort. I finished with this: if you've failed someone in your family, there's no quick fix. There's no shortcut back into their trust. But there is a way forward. And it starts with shutting up and showing up. Learn. Apologize. And then keep learning. Keep showing up. For the rest of your life, if that's what it takes. When I finished, I received a standing ovation. Mira clapped first. Colby, after a long pause, stood and clapped too. It wasn't redemption. But it was enough. A few days later, I got a card in the mail. Not a letter. Just a simple card. Inside, in Colby's blocky, awkward handwriting, it said, "You were right. I was wrong. I'll spend the rest of my life trying to undo the damage. Let me know when I can start." I didn't reply. But I kept the card. Because sometimes, the best revenge isn't screaming or cutting people out forever. Sometimes, the best revenge is watching them finally realize what they lost. And making them work, slowly, patiently, earnestly, to earn even a sliver of it back.